y'all doing? Welcome back to Talking with Big Fella. Welcome to my rainforest. As you know, Nashville's at a pivotal point. This city of the 20s that I call it. We're at a spot where we're about to pick how this place is going to move forward and who's going to be running this place. And right now, we have a very special guest with us. Y'all might even know her, Miss Heidi Campbell. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me to your rainforest.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for coming. This is pretty cool. Okay, so I like to start out with simple stuff. Where are you from?
I grew up here. This is my hometown. I grew up in Green Hills.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
You got any brothers, sisters?
I do. I'm the youngest. My brother's 10 years older, and my sister's 5 years older. So
I got a sister that's 9 years older than me. It's
yeah.
like different worlds.
It is.
Like by the time
well, they are different generations sometimes.
Yeah, for real. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you are interesting. You've done a lot of different things. Like you were just saying, you was in a band. You were a mayor before.
Yeah.
You are a state legislator.
Right.
That's an interesting roundabout things. Why, after all of that, what is it that makes you want to go run this race to be a mayor of Nashville?
I guess I feel called to do it. I ran for Congress last fall, and that was about defending Nashville because the state of Tennessee basically made it so that our entire representation in Congress was going to be taken away from us here in Nashville. And I stepped up to fight for that. And that I'm proud of the race we ran. We kept that seat relevant. We gave it everything we had, and that's important. Not all winning is binary. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a long game as well. But this is an extension of that for me because if we ignore what's going on in this state, we are going to be in big trouble. And if we elect a mayor who has been poking their finger in the eye of the state throughout this entire election, it's not going to work because I know these guys.
Yeah.
It's about relationships. These guys are my friends. They could not see the world more differently than the way I do on a few issues, a handful of issues. But in the final analysis, the stuff that really matters, the kitchen table issues, the stuff that we care about, I think we can work on those issues if we can calm down the conversation.
Yeah.
And we need somebody who is able to do that. And so one of my big goals in politics in general, I'm a singer and a songwriter, has been about increasing communication and also making sure that we're focusing on, I guess, basically love, you know,
real.
And getting back to a sense of the importance of civility and treating each other with respect, because that to me is what's missing and really just all of the hateful stuff that's coming from the state towards, people that I love.
Yeah.
And I realize that the mayor of Nashville doesn't necessarily directly impact policy, but most of what I've been able to get done in the state legislature, and I've gotten a lot done. I saved thousands of acres of hardwood forest. I've saved the Duck River. I got this judge who was incarcerating 8-year-old black children to retire. $195 million given to the Department of Children's Services because we had kids sleeping on office floors. None of that was done through regular legislative means. It was done by finding a way, and mostly through the Fourth Estate, through, getting the word out, through media, through putting on pressure. That is such an important thing for somebody in the mayor's seat in Nashville to do, and that's about communication and making sure that you are centering and amplifying the importance of equity and how we all do better when we all do better.
That's real.
Yeah.
That was a really good answer.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. You smart. I like how smart you are. It's pretty cool.
Oh, thanks. Well,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Appreciate that.
I got a random question then. Okay, so I'm from Detroit originally. Came down here in 99. I ended up back in Detroit in probably 2013 and to kind of be part of the revitalization and all that. My thoughts was just once I got up there and seen it, it was like Detroit had a lot of cool stuff going on, but it had bad PR. It wasn't telling its own story. It was like the rest of the country was telling this story of Detroit, and people believed it, you know?
Yeah.
And I had a guy ask me, no, I'll talk about that one secondhand. When I was up there, they had this 50-year plan, right? It's 50-year framework, the Detroit Future Cities. The most beautiful civic document I ever seen, which is interesting. It was just beautiful. It was like all the stakeholders that put into it, the companies to the organizations to everybody was a part of it. And in it, they had these places where it was like there had to be, it was like thriving black communities in Detroit. I guess Detroit being a semi-historical black city, you had to have neighborhoods with thriving African-American communities. You just had to. It couldn't be Detroit really without it.
Right.
And I came back here, and I'm looking, and as I'm thinking, I'm wondering, like, does Nashville have to have black people or thriving black community in it? In Detroit, they have to. It was historically black.
Right.
It's all changing now. But in Nashville, does it have to? And if so, wouldn't it have to be wrote down in some type of plan? Because if not, AJ Capital is just going to buy the places that could potentially be the thriving black community, and it'll be gone. What's your thoughts on that?
I love that idea. And the answer, of course, is yes. I mean, you know, Nashville was built as a unforgivably redlined city. I mean, first of all, it is 2023, and we are still so segregated into have and have not neighborhoods that are racially marked. And it started with building the highways through here, and it's never been resolved. So I mean, I think that we have to focus on triaging the inequities that we see in this city before we do anything else. Because I truly believe, and this isn't just like a kumbaya thing, it's just a actual strategic thing, because regardless of, how you feel about those issues, it's the smart thing to do. Yeah. Of course, it's the right thing to do from my perspective, but take that out of it if you have issues with that. And you're somebody who's like all about money. It's financially the smart thing to do because of the opportunity costs that we are starting to see ourselves incur because we're not doing that. And because of that, one of the most important things to me right now is Nashville General Hospital. Because we need to make sure that we have a good, healthy, solid hospital that centers mental health and a food pharmacy, and that we start to address some of the inequities we're seeing that, really we have neighborhoods where there are food deserts and people who are really struggling, and then, you go a mile over or even less, and you have, neighborhoods where, $1 million houses.
All the way.
Yeah, and it's not okay. I mean, we have people who are really struggling.
Is it possible? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I was telling somebody we were having a conversation like gentrification and all that, and I'm like, part of it is if you got somebody from California who sold a 3-bedroom bungalow for $1-something million, and they're leaving there and coming here, you got the Oracles and the Amazons and all of these people coming with people that are $130,000, $40,000 jobs. They're not thinking about, it's like a numbers game. It's like they're not thinking about being a great gentrifier. They just want a decent house in a neighborhood close to where they work. And how can you stop that? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, the market's already starting to stop it, because here's the deal. You're going to find people that aren't able to keep their profitability going if they can't actually afford to, keep their buildings clean. Or if they can't afford to, take care of the support staff things that they need to make their operations work. And all those companies that you mentioned, they need people who are running the front desk just like they need the CEO.
Yeah.
And they cannot operate if people can't afford to live here. So inevitably, and this is what I'm saying, like why it's financially smart to make sure that we're taking care of everybody, because inevitably it's about livability. And the livability factor in Nashville is going down. And we see that on all kinds of indices. We see that, in our burgeoning homeless rate, our unhoused rate. We see that in, the actual status of our environment, which is people are kind of bummed out, there's trash everywhere, things feel down at heel. In the final analysis, that's going to start to come back on the people who are making, the biggest decisions about, how their companies operate. Yeah. And that's the point we're at, where we have to make it very clear going forward that the focus has to be on Nashvillians, because it's not going to be good for anybody if it isn't.
Yeah. And you think that's possible?
I do. It's not like a magic wand kind of thing. It's hard work.
So it's a big event town, right? It's a big event town, the city brand, everything that they've been working on for a long time, to get it to this place, which I'm not mad at. It's a good thing to be a it city, But because of that, we got all these, like I keep saying, we got big city problems, small town thought process. It's like boom town happening, and the boom town is happening to everybody. You know what I'm saying? Even the politicians, city council people, they're not used to being a city council person in a big city.
Right.
This like boom town thing, and all these big companies come. They're used to going to a big place and spending what they got to spend, do what they do. It's almost like they're going to beat us,
Have you ever had a teenage boy in your life who grew really fast, like he grew a foot?
For sure.
And he doesn't know what to do with his body?
That's a good way to put it.
I feel like that's what we are.
That's a good-ass way to put it. That was real. That is where we are. That is where we are. And I'm like, how do we curtail that, or I'm wondering, like, is it possible with the way that it moves? Because even as a mayor, you don't just make the decision like, this is the way it's going. It's still a lot of moving parts to that, and you got to get the moving parts moving. Like, you believe it's possible to move that stuff around?
We were talking earlier about how things are so siloed here, and so I was talking to the planning department about that, and there's all this finger pointing that goes on when things are siloed, right? Because things stop working, but everybody's just like, and I don't blame people, because that's your inclination, is you don't want to, be pinned with stuff. What we need to do is stop siloing everything and catalyze communication so that we can actually streamline efficiencies, so that we can stop pointing fingers and start getting it done. Yeah. And that is, to me, and guess what? There's a lot of cost saving that goes along with that. Because, like, here's an example. I've talked to developers who want to build affordable housing, but they don't want to do it because Nashville's permitting process is such a pain in the rear. Yeah. It is like years to get through that permitting process because of the bottlenecks. Why are there bottlenecks? Because we will not pay building inspectors a competitive wage. That is ridiculous. That's an opportunity cost that is costing us as a city millions of dollars in homelessness and healthcare costs, all kinds of stuff, because we are not willing to have the cost savings that you could get from making that decision alone. That's just one example of the things we could streamline. There's loads of those.
It's a bunch of those.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about it like that.
Right.
Yeah. We're talking about that rainforest. My guy Victor Wang, who wrote that book, and he's doing this right to start thing. And I think that's his whole principle, a point of it is trying to legislate people's ability to start, because it's all these like barriers you bump into. Yes. If you're trying to start a business, you got to go over here and then go over here and then go over here. And it's like, let's make it easy for people to do the things that we need done that's going to help us out,
And that doesn't mean you don't have protections in.
Not at all.
But we do things that are illogical, and inefficient. And I'm not for big bureaucracy. I'm not for big government in that way. I'm for, streamlining things so that we're, so it makes sense.
How much of that is because that's the way it's been, and how much of that is because that's the way people who run it want it to be?
Both. And I think that what you were saying earlier about the ecosystem is such a beautiful analogy, because what happens when you start to silo departments is ecosystems grow around that core to protect it and to prevent it from interacting with the rest of the environment. And then you start to have winners and losers.
Yeah.
And we really need to shut that down so that we're actually working together, so that we're actually feeding the entire environment.
Yeah, so it kind of go up together.
Right.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. Another thing he mentioned, this is the first time that I've been talking to the candidates and really talking more about this rainforest concept. I don't know, it's interesting.
I love it.
Me too.
I'm
me
with
too.
you.
Me
I'm
too.
with you.
But the interesting thing, he say, when Silicon Valley started, he said they were doing the same thing on the West Coast, right? I mean, on the East Coast. He said the difference was on the East Coast, people followed the money. They did whatever the money said do. If the money said go over here, everybody's going over there. If the money said go over there, he said on the West Coast, the reason that it worked from his assessment was that the money followed the innovators.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that possible in Tennessee, or is that possible in Nashville? Or are we too, like, old white moneyed out? You know what I'm saying? It's like the old white money just like, no, this is the way it is and such. Or is that possible?
We have an interesting dichotomy in Nashville in particular, because we have a state that very much follows the money, but we have a city that was built in a lot of ways on following the ideas. It was built on music. It was built on the entrepreneurial ideas of healthcare. It was built on publishing, which is all about ideas, which is where that's more of the West Coast. So we have this very interesting dichotomy there. What's not going to work is if we actually have hostility continue to be fed towards the state.
Yeah, I was at the, matter of fact, somebody was getting put on the kneecap board at one of the council meetings where the guy came and was like trying to, they had been talking about it before, but with having the Republican National Convention here. And I'm sitting there, I'm just watching, and nobody really wanted to deal with it. I don't think it was kind of like a no. It was just kind of like, I'm not going to be the one to push this any further.
Right.
Here, wait, push it off to the next session, such and such. And I knew it right after there. I told him, I was like, you can't do that. If this is a big event town, you got to have, you can't pick who gets to have big events.
Yeah.
Whether you like them or not. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you almost have to be under the jurisdiction of the brand that you're pushing.
Yeah.
And once you get outside of that, you're in danger zone. And then right after that, all the stuff start happening with the state. And it's like, that's the absolute worst person to discriminate against, is the great discriminator, the Tennessee old rural white man that's the worst person to discriminate against.
I know. I wish we could just say back off, but we can't. They have more power.
No way. No way. That's like.
Yeah. And, I think one thing people need to understand is it is very much that, what you just said. I mean, like, one of the things they're maddest about is the fact that John Lewis Way is on their business cards. I mean, you and I, I'm sure, both think John Lewis is a hero. Why would you be upset about that? I mean, he's like one of the greatest people that in modern history. But that's not how they see it. They see it as our guy. They see it as parties. Not that he's, just this incredible man, but that he was a Democrat. Or he was on our team.
Oh,
and so they take it personally that that's on their card. Like,
I'm thinking like maybe even like they take it back to civil rights. Like, we didn't want this to happen anyway, and now you're going to put them on the business card. Like, you see, we killed Martin Luther King.
I mean, but here's the thing. I mean, is that something that we need to argue about all the time? Or can we just actually, change the conversation?
Yeah.
And I think as much as we can calm down and change the conversation, we're going to do better.
Yeah.
Because the deal is with not understanding other people. Like, there's all this hatred against trans people, for example.
Yeah.
Is that as much as you want to say, guys, that's wrong, and boy, is it wrong. Like, my office is the safe space in the Senate for trans people because it's been horrible.
Yeah.
As much as we want to say that that's never going to work. The only way that works is when, and this is interesting, the most passionate anti-trans people I've ever met are Republicans whose children turned trans. Because it hurt, and they realized, and they had a revelation, and now they're the biggest fighters for it.
Really?
Yeah, because that's what happens when you start to understand and not otherize people, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to create a space, like you have to give people a place to go. If you're constantly calling who wants to be the enemy? Nobody wants to be the
And
enemy.
it's like, for you to win, I got to lose, you know, for somebody to lose, or, you know.
How about
what I mean?
we all win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I wonder, is it like even possible? And most people, what 2020 showed me was that most people are not that smart. A lot of people are not as smart as I was giving people credit for. I was giving everybody a benefit of I'm assuming, just like people are. A lot of this stuff just don't make sense, but it's not about that. You know, it's about passion.
You watch some of those MAGA rally interviews, and you're like, wow. I know.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting.
Well, and now you have media that actually promotes all this disinformation, and you have people who really honestly that is where they're getting all their information.
And that is
scary.
Weirdly, it's America. It's like we have an ideal of what this is, but then you have the reality of what this is. That's why, like, I wouldn't vote for Trump, but I appreciate what he did for the country as far as showing just this is who we are.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's who we are.
Yeah.
It's not who we think we are. No, he's proven who we really are, because you can't be the mayor without a decent small majority of people saying, I agree with you, and put you in there. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, you're so right. I mean, we were sort of in this post-Barack Obama haze where we were like, oh, yeah, no, racism's over. We're all good. And it's like, nope.
No.
And he did make that clear.
He did make that clear.
He made it really clear.
And now we're living in it and seeing it too, and everything's real obvious, like the great reveal. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I used to feel weird, like something was wrong with me. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know, could just feel it. But after 2020, I was like, oh no, everybody's crazy. It's not me. This is a crazy place.
Yeah.
I was under the haze that everything's cool. Got to be something wrong with me, or I'm looking at
therapy.
This wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a few more minutes. I got a couple questions I want to ask you.
Oh, cool.
Okay. All right, we kind of talked about this, but being that this music city is kind of like a city of creatives, it's part of the city brand, like you said, from publishing to any place where people come and bring their dreams. They come follow their dreams and their hopes. It's got a magic to it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why a lot of these companies want to come here, because you could feel that in here. Mix that with the fact that it's a big event town and they're going to do fireworks and get more people, and we know how to party better than anybody else. It makes it an interesting place. But as far as those creative people being able to be here and live here and keep that energy, we could lose that.
Right.
You know, if you keep the business part of the music business people, and the music part kind of got to go live in Clarksville.
Right.
It can get weird. We can get a bunch of like corporate robot people walking around and bridal parties and all of that. And
right.
Is it possible to salvage that and keep that going, or are we too far down the hole and too much big money and all of that?
Well, I mean, you and I were talking about this before we came on the air, that we actually have to support the people who actually make the industry move. Yeah. And that's, you see the big, bright, shiny video at the end of something, but all the people here that are working to make, the cameras work and the soundboards work and the lights and everything, those people have to be able to work here as well. And so if we price those people out of the city, which is what's happening right now, and that's not just in television, that's in music, that's in restaurant business, that's in hospitality. Yeah. I mean, that's in that even impacts the almighty tourism, So if we price those people out, inevitably we're not going to be able to sustain our continued growth and actually we'll start to see it diminish. So it's not only something we can do, it's something we have to do. It's an all hands on deck emergency.
How do you do it?
So when I take office, I want to take a complete public survey of a complete comprehensive survey of our public lands. We have a lot of public land here that we could use for affordable housing, and continue to fuel public-private partnerships, continue to invest in and increase investment in the Barnes Fund, which is actually helping us with public housing, incentivize and support co-ops like the Ryman Lofts, things like that, where we're, really supporting IT and artists and yes. And that's another thing, is looking at possibly public school land for building housing for teachers and RTI instructors and counselors and people who work in those schools, because we don't pay our teachers enough. We don't pay counselors enough.
It's the worst.
It is. And, social workers, the people who actually make the most difference in our community, we do not pay them enough.
Yeah.
And librarians.
Yeah.
So I was talking to a librarian earlier,
It's funny that in the end, well, I don't say it's the end, but like at the point we are, who knew that? Did you know that the librarians have some like type of oath that they all?
I didn't.
Yeah, to like defend everybody's right to access information and everything. They all
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
in
so
the
cool.
end, the librarians are gonna be the superheroes.
I think librarians already are the superheroes.
Especially like AI and all that, like where something's true.
Right.
It's going to be somebody just like National Treasure going to the library, going through some microfiche to see what's actually happened.
Well, and you know what? That's an interesting question too, because I'm sure you've thought about this, because you're obviously a deep thinker. But like, if our grid was to shut down, who are going to be the people who know how to get stuff done? It's going to be people like the librarians, people who have not been so attached to the phone and technology.
Oh, man. Yeah, you cooler than I thought you were going to be. I didn't know.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, you're pretty cool.
Well, you are too. I appreciate it.
Yeah. What's another? Let me get one more. We got about a minute and a half. Real quick. Everybody is talking about this transit thing, right? Is it possible to fix this before? It seemed like we kind of already behind the 8 ball on it. And
I have been well trained to answer in a minute 30, so I'm going to do it real fast. Move Radnor Yards. TDOT did a study 10 years ago about moving Radnor Yards, which is by 100 Oaks. It's this huge train switching plot of land out to Rutherford or Wilson County. That creates a go-around for the trains. And then our inner train lines are ours. We can use them for multimodal connectivity, light rail, buses. We can have that conversation, but that is such a great way to free up that land. And the thing about it is it's 1/6 the price of that transit referendum we voted on in 2018. And I serve on the Transportation Committee in the Senate, and I can tell you that we have more money right now coming in from the federal government and the state than we've ever had for transportation. So I think we can actually build some funding around it. On top of that, I've gotten a study done in the legislature on passenger rail, and we're now looking at a route from Nashville to Chattanooga. So Chattanooga is connecting to Atlanta. That would connect us to the Eastern Network.
Yeah. Man, I got another question, but I guess we're going to miss it. We got a few seconds left. It's been pretty cool talking to you.
Great talking to you.
Yeah,
I really love it. I love your rainforest.
Yeah, we're working on it. All right, y'all. You got a crucial choice in August. The choice is yours. We're just doing this so we can meet the people. Thank you, Heidi Campbell. You've been talking with
Don't forget to vote.
Yep, you better vote.